Hello people, I'm Ginnymetheral. I'm a fourth generation witch. Yes, really. Now today's video is all about that amazing sabbat which is known as Lammas, or in the Wiccan calendar, Lughnasadh. So what we're going to look at is what, when, how and where. So Lughnasadh starts on the 1st of August. Traditionally, it used to run from the end of July till about the 14th of August maybe, and it was dedicated to when the first grain harvest happened. So in the old days, when we had sickles, we would cut the grain by hand, and the first cut of grain would quickly and swiftly be made into bread for the workers to feast on that night. So in this world where all things are available at all time, the Wiccan religion formalised this festival, which covered a few weeks, onto the 1st of August. And that is the date that we now celebrate. This sabbat is, of course, one that has grown up with us since we became farmers. It is a bit of a gory festival, this, so I'm going to go into a little bit about what our ancestors did, which obviously I can't recommend nowadays, but I find it fascinating. So you would reap the first fruits of the grain harvest, and with your scythes and sickles you'd cut through the neck. And this killing blow killed the traditional corn spirit of the field. And therefore, this sabbat really sits on some old sabbats of our ancestors that involve a lot of sacrifice, and this was often human. It was considered an honour to be sacrificed by your tribe as an offering to the earth in order to replenish the earth and ensure that the corn spirit grew next year. And so blood was really spilt. Do you remember all those 1970s horrors about Wicker Man, where they would kill the men as a sacrifice? This is sort of true, did happen. And this never really stopped until the end of the first millennium in the Common Era. I mean, probably there was pockets of human sacrifice that happened in more Celtic areas. For example, the area where I live, well beyond the first millennia. But we don't really know. So we only now hear echoes of this human sacrifice in the traditions that we now celebrate on this Sabbath. Lughnasadh is named after the great god Lugh, who's sort of a patron saint of all things, poetry, warrior, magician, i.e. druid. There was an awful lot of celebrations of Lugh, which involved sword plays, plays themselves, poetry recitals, and of course races, athletic, chariot, horse, you name it. The Christian faith, when it came to this country, didn't want Lugh, the god, to be worshipped. So they put their own festival in place, and this is Lammas, the festival of loaf mass. Mass, of course, being the Christian way of celebrating their religion. Other Celtic areas would celebrate this day as Garland Day. This is where the men of the community would present to the lucky lady that caught their eye a garland of flowers for her to wear. And they would parade about the place, and maybe one virgin of the community would be chosen to represent the corn goddess, the spirit of the corn. When the day and the festivities had finished, these garlands were then taken and ploughed back into the land as an offering to the corn spirit. Standing stones were also garlanded on this day. These stones were strategically placed by our ancestors in order to radiate the magic earth energy, as I have recently discussed in one of my ley line videos. And if you want to see it, I'll put the ley line video up here for you, and I'll also put last year's Lammas Lughnasadh video, because there's a lot of information in that you might be interested in viewing. In varying parts of the country, they had different types of corn spirit, whether it be female, whether it be male. So some would have the green man, some would call the corn spirit John Barleycorn, and others would have it as the earth magic goddess. So it was very much dependent on where you were. It was also considered to be the start of the autumn season, and this is one thing that Wiccans have taken this Sabbath to hold still. This is the beginning of a new season. We're coming through into the autumn now, with the harvesting of the grains and the gathering of the crops and the fruits. Because remember, the dark nights season starts on Halloween with the new year on the 1st of November. So this is our last quarter season of the year. Again though, we are going to come back to that idea of reaping. An old Celtic word for Lughnasadh was bron trogen. If I've pronounced that right, I do apologise if I haven't quite got my Anglo-Saxon pronunciation right. And this means sorrow of the earth, because of course it refers to the reaping of the corn and the killing of the corn spirit. It is no coincidence that the Grim Reaper is so named. That wonderful epitome of the angel of death with his scythe, which is what of course they would be using to kill the corn spirit. There is a lot of death and rebirth in this sabbat. Even today, one of the repercussions and the whispers of our old traditions is that the last part of a cornfield is left untouched, the last sheaf. And in the old days, in the 1800s, the men would stand around and throw their sickles to try and cut the sheath of corn at its neck. And all of them would do this together so that there was no one person who could have been said to have killed the corn spirit. And if they saw that one man was responsible for the death of this sheaf, he would be jostled quite badly and a bit roughed up, really. And this is in repercussions of him killing the corn spirit. And they wanted to spill his blood upon the field to regenerate and renew the earth for the next year. Other ways that they would help the corn spirit is to turn this last neck of corn that is left in the field into corn dollies. Where I grew up, every single wheat field had a corn dolly placed at the gate as protection and for the corn spirit. And you were allowed to pick them up and look at them, very much so. We all knew this, it was ingrained into us. But you couldn't remove them from that gate. And they were intricate and beautiful. And so I did make a video showing you how to make a corn dolly, because this is one of the finest ways to celebrate this particular sabbat. Make yourself a corn dolly and bring it inside to your house to hang from your beams and rafters for the next year. In the spring, the corn dolly is taken out, ploughed back into the land to revitalise that corn spirit. For the Wiccans, again, this is a fire festival. And of course, with the changing seasons, you always have a fire. Best thing to do if you don't have a bonfire is light a candle, because that is a representation of how to celebrate this traditional feast. You can also bake some bread. Now I'm going to show you how to bake a quick herby soda bread, because I find baking bread unbelievably boring. I can't deal with all that kneading. I find it too dull. But if you don't like kneading or working too hard, here's my quick herby soda bread. To 500 grams of plain flour, I'm adding 100 grams of rolled oats. Next is a teaspoon each of bicarb of soda and salt. And lastly, I'm going to add a large teaspoon of dried sage, but you could add any herb of your choice. Combine the dry ingredients well together and then add 25 grams of unsalted butter, which you then rub in to the dried mix. Finally, I'm adding half a litre of buttermilk. Actually, this is milk and lemon juice because I didn't have any buttermilk, which is pretty much the same thing. Mix this in all well until you get a very soggy dough. Mine is a bit too soggy, but hey-ho. Place the dough onto a lined baking sheet and then try and cut across into the top. It's not really working here as my dough is too soggy. Put in the oven at 200 degrees for half an hour until it is delicious. One of the ways to celebrate this house is to now take this soda bread that you have baked and break it into 4 pieces. Place each of the pieces around the 4 corners of your home, and this will bring the blessings of the corn spirit on that day. An old charm that was said over these 4 corners of bread placed around the home is as follows: I conjure you, O meal, without which we could not live. Be thou as the body of a great spirit, and encompass this house from its 4 corners. Spirit into body, and body into home. And this will bring you luck for the coming year. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any particular traditions for Lughnasadh, because I love hearing your points of view and your particular ways that you celebrate your craft. So do leave me a comment. Otherwise, do not forget to subscribe, because that really helps my channel and it means I can continue making these videos. So please subscribe and tell your friends about me. You can join my channel, or you can join me on Patreon, where you get a really good witchcraft workshop every month as a Coven member, and it is a thrilling ride. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a couple of days.